So imagine walking into a physical conference room for a standard Tuesday morning status update. You take your seat, you open your notebook, and you look up.
Just a completely normal, typical workday setup.
Right, exactly. But instead of just looking at your colleagues, you find that someone has placed a physical mirror exactly 12 inches from your face.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And for the next hour, every single time you speak, every time you nod or, react to a budget projection, you are forced to watch your own facial expressions in real time.
Which is just deeply unsettling.
It really is. Now imagine doing that for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
I mean, you would completely lose your mind.
Oh, absolutely. The psychological friction of that scenario is profound, yet that is the exact architectural design of modern knowledge work right now.
It is. We just accept it.
Yeah, we have normalized this communication environment that, frankly, completely ignores human biological limits.
And that right there is the core paradox we are unpacking in today's deep dive. We're looking at this whole diagnostic landscape of burnout and fatigue.
Which usually just gets written off as like a soft cultural complaint. People saying, oh, everyone's just tired of screens.
Exactly. But the data tells a vastly different, deeply structural story. And we have a massive stack of sources in front of us today for this.
We really do. We're treating this not as an HR issue, but as a pure engineering failure.
Right. We're pulling from a deeptech analysis by Prasad Bond. We've got the Laxis 2026 State of Meetings Benchmark Report and SpeakWise's 2025 Meeting Fatigue Statistics.
Plus some really fascinating cognitive research from Cosmos Video and Isaiah Blue's latest insights on modern meeting culture.
It's a lot of ground to cover.
It is, but our mission today is very clear. We are going to apply the minimalist design principles of the legendary industrial designer Dieter Rams to our corporate calendars.
Well, I love that angle. Dieter Rams.
Right. He famously championed the philosophy of less but better. He believed that good design requires functional clarity, visual order, and really the aggressive subtraction of the unnecessary.
Subtraction is key there.
Exactly. And when we apply that exact framework to how we communicate at work, we find that we need to fundamentally redesign our workdays. We have to eliminate what the data reveals to be a massive macroeconomic hemorrhage.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the scale of that hemorrhage is, frankly, where we need to begin.
It's staggering.
It really is, because for anyone listening to this, whether you're, a frontline worker drowning in calendar invites or a director working nights just to get your actual job done, this isn't just about feeling exhausted.
No, not at all.
We have built a system where we possess the most advanced tools in human history. I mean, we can architect micro-precise robotics.
Yeah, and we deploy edge AI models that literally shave milliseconds off global supply chains.
Right, but we simultaneously spend 15 minutes of every single hour asking a grid of digital faces if they can see our screen.
It's absurd when you frame it like that, but we are dealing with a quantifiable productivity drain. It's an exact $399 billion to $532 billion annual drain in the United States alone.
Yeah, billion with a B?
Billion with a B annually. And that loss is caused directly by recurring workplace meeting cycles. So we really need to dissect the physical, cognitive, and financial physics behind this failure.
Let's start with that macro calculation then, because those billion-dollar figures from the Laxis report, they sound almost too large to comprehend.
They do sound made up, honestly.
Yeah. How exactly do we reach $399 billion in lost capital?
Well, it begins with the sheer volume of synchronous communication. Since the shift to remote and hybrid work modalities, the volume of corporate meetings hasn't just increased.
It's exploded.
It's up by 252%. According to the Laxis 2026 data, the average knowledge worker is now attending 21.7 meetings per week.
That is insane. So that translates to what, like 11 hours?
It's 11.3 hours spent directly in those meetings.
Which is nearly 28% of a standard 40-hour work week, just sitting on calls.
Exactly. But that 28% only accounts for the active time on the clock. You have to factor in the adjacent overhead, too.
Right, the prep work.
Yeah, preparing the presentation, reviewing the agenda, formatting the follow-up notes, and just the time spent transitioning between tasks. That adds another 3 to 4 hours.
So if you aggregate those numbers over a year.
SpeakWise's data reveals that the average employee spends 392 hours annually trapped in synchronous video calls.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That is almost 10 full work weeks per employee every single year.
Losing a fifth of the calendar year to sitting in front of a webcam is just a staggering baseline.
And when industry analysts calculate the wages paid for those specific hours, focusing strictly on gatherings that participants classify as unproductive or unnecessary, they hit that $399 billion number.
That's the baseline productivity drain strictly from the wasted time.
Right. It represents 24 billion person-hours wasted. But Prasad Bond's deeptech analysis pushes that capital leak even higher to $532 billion annually.
Because he's looking at the broader structural friction.
Right, exactly. He incorporates the opportunity cost, the delayed product launches, the revenue lost when client work stalls because internal teams are stuck on internal calls.
Oh, and the massive capital expense of recruiting and training new talent.
Yeah.
Because, operators just burn out and quit.
Precisely. So when Bond calculates the total structural friction, it equates to roughly $25,000 lost per employee every single year.
$25,000. Let's ground that in a physical reality for a second.
Okay.
Imagine you run a traditional manufacturing plant. If your factory was leaking $25,000 worth of raw steel or like microchips per worker directly onto the factory floor year after year.
The board of directors would intervene immediately.
Immediately. They would halt the production line, bring in structural engineers, and redesign the entire manufacturing system from scratch.
Absolutely.
So why do executives tolerate this exact scale of structural failure when it happens in knowledge work?
Because cognitive friction is invisible. I mean, you can't see human attention evaporating the way you can see a puddle of oil on a factory floor.
That's a great point.
Executives look at a packed calendar, and they just see an active, engaged workforce. They completely mistake the presence of an event for the production of value.
And this blind spot is compounded by a major modality shift, isn't it?
Yes, the purely in-person meeting is functionally extinct. The Laxis data shows that 98% of organizational meetings now include at least one remote participant.
So every meeting now involves a screen, an audio feed, and a camera.
Exactly.
I want to look closely at the mechanics of those screen-based meetings.
Oh.
Because there's a strange contradiction in the Laxis report that caught my eye.
Oh, about the meeting links.
Yeah. It notes that the average meeting length has actually dropped. We went from 51-minute averages down to 47 minutes.
Right.
So if companies are successfully pushing for shorter meetings, shouldn't that technically be better? A 47-minute meeting consumes less capital than an hour-long meeting, right?
What's fascinating here is that the duration metric is completely deceptive. The average duration dropped by a few minutes, sure, but the volume of those meetings doubled. So you're just having twice as many slightly shorter meetings.
Exactly. And this phenomenon creates what researchers define as the meeting time paradox. Shorter, more frequent meetings actually shred the calendar into unusable fragments.
They collapse the white space between obligations.
Yes. Because of this high-frequency scheduling, the median uninterrupted focus block for a knowledge worker has plummeted to a mere 20 minutes.
You cannot execute complex work in a 20-minute window. I mean, if I need to audit a financial model or write a piece of software architecture.
Or develop a long-term strategic plan.
Right. The first 15 minutes are spent simply loading the context into my brain.
Exactly. And if we view this through Dieter Rams' design philosophy, a modern calendar lacks both functional clarity and visual order.
Because Rams would say, good design simplifies the function.
Exactly. We have engineered a workday where the primary product, which is human thought, is constantly interrupted by the mechanism meant to coordinate it. It's a system at war with its own purpose. That is such a profound way to look at it. And if the financial cost is the macro problem, we need to understand why these frequent screen-based meetings are so damaging.
We have to transition from the wallet to the physical brain.
Right. Let's look at the cognitive research from Cosmos Video. They dug into the biological toll of what they term unnatural eye contact.
This is fascinating stuff because the common assumption is that an online video call is just, a digital translation of sitting in a physical office.
But neurologically, the brain processes it as an entirely different stimuli.
Yes, the visual inputs are fundamentally incompatible with human evolutionary biology.
How so?
Well, in a physical conference room, eye contact is shared and rotational. You look at the speaker, you glance down at your notes, you look at the whiteboard, maybe you look out the window.
It's dynamic.
Right. But on a digital video grid, participants experience sustained, close-up, direct eye contact from multiple people simultaneously.
And biologically, how does the human brain interpret that?
It interprets intense, sustained eye contact from a pack of faces as one of two things: a high-level threat scenario, like a predator, or a highly intimate interaction.
Neither of which matches the reality of a casual Tuesday morning status update.
Not at all.
Huh.
But your autonomic nervous system begins firing as if you're in a survival scenario. It elevates cortisol levels while you're simply trying to decipher a marketing budget.
Which creates a massive invisible brain drain.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. This leads directly back to that scenario we opened with. The mirror 1 foot from your face.
Ah, yes. Mirror anxiety.
Right. The researchers labeled this specific phenomenon mirror anxiety. It's the psychological and mechanical strain of constantly monitoring your own facial expressions on a delayed video feed.
It is exhausting. Software interfaces that force the brain to render its own output while simultaneously trying to process incoming data. It creates severe cognitive bottlenecks.
Cosmos Video identifies this as the performance trap, right?
Yes. Because instead of allocating bandwidth to the actual content of the meeting, operators waste immense cognitive resources on the performance of listening.
I do this all the time. You're consciously managing your posture. You're doing that exaggerated nodding to signal agreement.
Trying to maintain a look of authentic engagement.
Yeah.
And you're constantly checking your own video feed to ensure you don't look bored.
So we're basically exhausting ourselves by playing the role of an attentive worker rather than just doing the actual work.
Exactly. And functional MRI data actually validates the physical toll of this performance.
Really? They did fMRI scans on this.
They did. When humans have live, physical, face-to-face interactions, the brain's reward circuits activate. Specifically, the ventral striatum and the amygdala process those social cues naturally.
So physical presence gives us an unconscious neurological reward that sustains our energy.
Right. But digital video calls lack those chemical rewards completely. They require...
And then you add the tech friction tax to that compensatory effort,
Yeah.
and the exhaustion makes total sense.
Our tech friction tax is brutal.
We all experience it, right?
Yeah.
The audio delays, the frozen screens, the microstutters in the network. The Laxis report states that 72% of workers lose time to these tech issues.
But it's not just lost time.
Right, because if someone's audio cuts out for half a second, my brain acts as a software patch. My predictive engine has to work overtime to fill in the missing syllables and visual gaps where the data packet's dropped.
And that predictive processing requires immense glucose and cognitive stamina.
It's no wonder that 76% of workers state they feel completely drained on meeting-heavy days. And 49% explicitly report webcam-induced exhaustion.
Yeah. And if we bring this back to Dieter Rams's principle.
Right, less but better.
Exactly. He taught that good design should be unobtrusive. The standard video meeting is an absolute failure of design because the tool demands more attention than the task it was built to facilitate.
That is a brilliant way to phrase it. The tool demands more attention than the task.
It's a structural flaw.
So we have established how deeply a single virtual meeting drains the neurological battery. But the real crisis seems to occur when we look at the aggregation of these meetings.
What happens in the spaces between the calls?
Right, because if we look at the Speakwise data, 78% of workers say that meeting overload physically prevents them from getting their actual work done.
This is where we confront the myth of the 20-minute gap. Because calendars are so densely packed with half-hour increments, workers are left with these fragmented 20 to 30-minute blocks.
And as we discussed earlier, those fragments are functionally useless for high-value output.
Completely useless. Cal Newport's research on deep work, which is backed by decades of cognitive science, shows that strategic, complex thinking requires a minimum of 90 minutes of uninterrupted concentration.
You need 90 minutes just to achieve a state of flow.
Right. You cannot build complex mental architecture in 20 minutes, yet professionals attempt it every single day.
They jump off a high-stimulation alignment call, open their code editor or a dense strategic document, and try to force their brain to immediately engage.
Which triggers the mechanical reality of the 40% task switching penalty.
Let's break down the biological mechanism of that penalty.
Yeah.
If I switch from a performative Zoom call to a complex spreadsheet, my brain isn't just flipping a toggle switch.
No, not all.
What is physically happening in the working memory?
Well, your working memory has a limited cache, very much like a computer's RAM. Transitioning from a highly stimulating, performative social environment back to focused technical work, it requires physical time.
Time to dump the temporary memory cache of the meeting.
Exactly. The brain literally has to clear out the visual grid of faces, the lingering social dynamics, the anxiety over an unresolved budget question, the list of action items.
It has to wipe the slate clean.
Right. Only after that cache is cleared can it begin to load and reconstruct the complex, multi-layered mental models needed for deep technical work.
It's exactly like closing a web browser with 50 tabs open and then trying to immediately launch a heavy, demanding 3D rendering software.
That's a perfect analogy.
The CPU is going to lag while it reallocates resources.
And Prasad Bond's research highlights that this constant offloading and reloading process destroys exactly 40% of a worker's productive capacity.
40%. So you aren't just losing the 1 hour you spent in the meeting.
No, you are losing 40% of your cognitive capacity for the remainder of the day simply by forcing your prefrontal cortex to violently shift gears over and over.
This friction compounds into what Microsoft's 2025 Work Trend Index calls the interruption crisis.
Their telemetry data on this is wild.
It is. It reveals that employees are interrupted every 2 minutes during core hours. That's roughly 275 interruptions a day.
It's unsustainable.
If you're listening to this and you have ever reached 3:00 p.m. on a Tuesday feeling like your brain is filled with absolute static.
Where you aren't physically tired, but you cannot even compose a 3-sentence email.
Yes, this is the exact mechanism behind it.
The data formally categorizes that static as the meeting hangover.
A meeting hangover. I love that term.
Speakwise notes that 90% of employees report experiencing a productivity hangover after a heavy meeting day.
Because the glucose depletion in the brain is so severe that it impairs work quality long after the meetings have ended.
Exactly. The physiological research proves that back-to-back scheduling with zero recovery time compounds stress hormones exponentially.
Because you don't have that buffer.
Right. Without a dedicated 5 to 10-minute buffer between high-load cognitive tasks, cortisol simply builds and builds, eventually shutting down executive function.
Okay, so if this system is so biologically destructive, and we know it is financially hemorrhaging $500 billion a year, we have to ask why it persists.
We have to trace the root cause directly up the corporate ladder.
Right. The sources indicate this structural failure originates at the executive dashboard.
It stems from a fundamental miscalculation at the management level. Managers routinely mistake synchronous visibility for operational velocity.
Wow, mistaking visibility for velocity.
They operate under the illusion that because they can see people's faces on a screen, productive work is actively occurring.
It's like a digital translation of an archaic mindset. If I can see you sitting at your desk, you are working. If I can't see you, I have to assume you are slacking off.
And that mindset is driven by visibility anxiety. In a traditional physical office, a manager receives constant, passive, visual confirmation that work is happening.
Right. They hear keyboards clacking, they see whiteboards filled with diagrams, they see teams huddled in a corner.
But in a remote or hybrid environment, managers lack that passive confirmation. So to compensate for the anxiety of not seeing the work happen, they manufacture visibility.
By scheduling daily stand-ups, weekly one-on-ones, and endless cross-departmental alignment syncs.
Exactly. What used to be an organic 30-second shoulder tap in the hallway is now formalized as a 30-minute scheduled calendar event.
And the structural gridlock this creates is astonishing. Because if calendars are entirely packed with these visibility meetings, when does the execution of the actual work happen?
It doesn't happen during the day. Atlassian and Speakwise found that 51% of standard employees and a massive 67% of directors are forced to work overtime just to execute their core technical tasks.
67% of directors. Prasad Bond describes these executive calendars as a Tetris board of undocumented obligations.
It's a great description.
But I have to push back on this dynamic for a second. If 67% of directors are working nights and weekends to keep up, that means the very people who possess the authority to change the meeting culture are the ones burning out the fastest.
That's true.
So what is psychologically preventing these executives from just canceling the calls?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the prevention is systemic, not just psychological. Director-level executives and middle managers are the control point owners of the enterprise.
Meaning they hold a specific authority to approve budgets, unblock technical snags, sign off on legal copy.
And finalize strategic pivots.
Yes. So when these control point owners are trapped in 8 hours of visibility meetings a day, their capacity to make decisions drops to zero. Because they literally cannot review a budget approval if they are stuck on a completely unrelated alignment call about a marketing campaign.
Precisely. And when those critical decisions stall, the frontline staff is forced to wait.
So it creates a bottleneck.
Exactly. And what happens when a team is blocked from working, waiting on an approval, and growing anxious about their deadlines?
They schedule another status meeting with the director to figure out why the project is stalled.
It becomes a vicious, self-replicating cycle. The attempt to gain clarity creates more congestion. This is exactly why 82% of white-collar workers are currently at risk of burnout. The system is structurally designed to cause gridlock.
Okay, we have fully diagnosed the pathology here.
Yeah.
We understand the $399 billion capital leak. We've explored the biological brain drain of mirror anxiety, and we see how visibility anxiety at the director level creates a self-replicating bottleneck.
The diagnosis is clear.
The crucial pivot now is restorative engineering. How do we apply Dieter Rams' industrial design philosophy to actually fix this?
Dieter Rams' ethos of less but better demands that we apply minimalist design principles to human communication.
And Prasad Bond frames this as restorative engineering, right?
Yes. The core premise is that our operational protocols must restore human capability through aggressive subtraction.
Subtraction is such a counterintuitive business concept. I mean,
Yeah.
we usually try to solve problems by adding new software, adding new protocols, adding more check-ins.
But adding layers only increases the structural friction. We must impose severe boundary conditions on human communication bandwidth. We need to start treating human attention as a highly constrained physical resource.
Like server compute power.
Exactly. Consider how rigorously a tech company manages server compute or how carefully engineers optimize the battery life of a drone. Every millisecond of draw is calculated.
So we must treat human cognitive load with that exact same level of engineering rigor.
Right.
So what does a Dieter Rams designed workflow actually look like for a team trying to deploy this tomorrow morning?
It requires adopting Prasad Bonde's exact operational protocol for asynchronous extraction. Step 1 is the blunt force subtraction. Cancel the weekly recurring alignment meetings.
Just remove the default expectation of synchronous time entirely.
Exactly.
But, teams still get blocked. Projects still stall. If we cancel the sync, how do we actually unblock the work?
That is step 2. Enforce the 150-word text brief.
Okay, tell me about this.
If a project is blocked, you do not schedule a 45-minute calendar invite. Instead, the person who is blocked must write a strictly limited 150-word text brief identifying the exact mechanical failure or system blockage.
And step 3.
Step 3 requires demanding a binary yes or no approval decision from the control point owner based solely on that brief.
I can hear the pushback from managers already on this one. Doesn't enforcing a strict 150-word limit strip away all the necessary nuance? I mean, what if the blockage is incredibly complex and requires a nuanced brainstorm, not a binary yes or no?
This is a critical distinction to make. Brainstorming and strategic ideation are different operational phases than execution and unblocking.
Oh, that makes sense.
If you need to invent a new product, you absolutely need synchronous, open-ended time. But 80% of the meetings clogging the calendar are not creative brainstorms.
They're just status updates and minor permission requests.
Exactly. By forcing a stalled project issue into a 150-word constraint, you force the employee to do the hard cognitive work of distilling the problem before they asked for time.
You eliminate the performative fluff and the rambling context setting that eats up the first 20 minutes of a typical meeting.
Right. You deliver the barest mechanical truth to the decision maker.
It functions like installing a physical mechanical toggle switch on a piece of heavy machinery. If the machine jams, you don't gather 12 people in a room to debate the philosophical merits of the jam for an hour.
No, you'd never do that.
You read a brief saying, "The gear is jammed. Can I replace it with the backup gear?" And the manager just flips the toggle switch to yes or no.
That is functional clarity at its peak. It's Dieter Rams in action. And Bond actually provides a highly actionable test for anyone listening to try today. He calls it the 48-hour protocol validation.
Walk us through how you would execute that test.
Identify a project in your portfolio that is currently stalled or moving too slowly. Cancel any status meetings related to that specific project for the next 48 hours.
Okay.
Then, formulate your 150-word brief and send it to the control point owner. Format it exactly like this. The blockage is X, the failure is Y. I need a binary yes-no to bypass the blockage by using Z. Please reply in 4 hours.
That is brutally efficient.
Yeah.
And it places a very clear, bounded demand on the executive's attention.
And if that executive can reply via text or email with a yes without needing to schedule a synchronous meeting, you have mathematically reduced the cognitive load on both parties.
You bypass the bottleneck entirely through subtraction.
Exactly.
I see how the 150-word brief surgically handles project blockages. However, realistically, we cannot cancel every single meeting.
Right, some are unavoidable.
Yeah, some collaboration requires real-time, synchronous thought, like those creative brainstorms you mentioned, or complex client negotiations. So how do we redesign the unavoidable meetings that remain so they don't destroy the rest of the workday?
To redesign the remaining meetings, we have to address what the Laxis report identifies as the memory layer.
The memory layer.
Yes, they uncovered a stunning stylized fact in their 2026 data. Without formal follow-up notes, 70% of all meeting decisions are forgotten within 24 hours.
Wait, really? 70% of decisions just vanish in a day.
Yes.
So employees endure the mirror anxiety, they suffer the 40% task switching penalty that completely wrecks their afternoon, they bleed out the company's financial capital, and the very next day, nobody even remembers what was decided.
It sounds absurd, but yes. The human brain produces spoken conversation far faster than human attention can encode that information into long-term memory.
And the manual fix for this is equally inefficient, right?
Oh, totally. The traditional solution is appointing someone to take meeting minutes.
But the Laxis report notes that the median knowledge worker spends 40 minutes formatting, editing, and distributing notes after every 2 hours of meetings.
And even with all that manual labor, they often miss crucial nuances, or they forget to tag the correct department for an action item. It is a slow, error-prone system.
Which is why the Dieter Rams approach here is to treat meeting output as automated infrastructure.
Exactly. We must implement AI summarization through default on capture.
What does that look like in practice?
Every essential synchronous meeting should be automatically recorded, transcribed, and summarized by an AI assistant in real time, requiring zero manual input from the participants.
I understand how that saves the 40 minutes of typing up notes, but how does default on capture actually reduce the cognitive load of the meeting itself?
Because the presence of perfect infrastructure fundamentally alters human behavior.
Oh, interesting.
The data shows that when teams implement default on capture, average meeting lengths organically drop by 20 to 40%.
Just because the AI is taking notes.
Yes. When attendees know there is a perfect, instantly searchable written record being generated, their anxiety drops. They stop interrupting to ask redundant recap questions.
And they stop scheduling secondary alignment meetings on Thursday just to clarify what was vaguely agreed upon on Tuesday.
Exactly. Furthermore, because AI automatically extracts and assigns action items, the completion rate of those items jumps from a dismal 50% up to 95%.
So what does this all mean for our daily schedules? If we are treating our attention like a constrained resource like drone battery life, what are the specific micro-design changes we can physically make to our calendar software today to protect that battery?
The Laxis and Cosmos video research points to several high ROI architectural changes. First, you need to change your calendar software's default meeting duration.
Okay.
Shift away from the standard 30 and 60 minutes and default to 25 and 50 minutes.
This mathematically forces a 10-minute cognitive buffer between calls.
Yes. It guarantees the brain has the physical time required to dump the memory cache and process the cortisol buildup, preventing the exponential stress compounding we explored earlier.
Exactly that. What else?
Second, organizations must adopt an absolute agenda or cancel norm.
I love the sound of that.
It's very simple. If there is not a clear written agenda attached to the calendar invite by the morning of the meeting, the software automatically deletes the event.
Wow. And does that actually work?
The Laxis report states that implementing the single rule drops meeting volume by 15 to 22% almost instantly.
Which proves that a vast majority of those meetings had absolutely no operational purpose. They were just managers seeking the comfort of visibility.
Exactly. Third, we must aggressively engineer meeting-free zones.
Like Focus Fridays.
Yes, or protecting the hours between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. exclusively for deep work across the entire company. You cannot simply hope for deep work to happen.
Right, you have to actively architect those 90-minute flow states. Otherwise, the calendar will naturally fill the vacuum with low-value syncs.
Precisely. Finally, we have to solve for the loss of the organic shoulder tap.
Right, because Cosmos Video pointed out that remote workers lose the ability to just lean over a desk and ask a quick, low-stakes question.
And because they lose that, they overcompensate. Every 30-second question gets inflated into a 30-minute calendar event.
So what's a solution?
Adopting spontaneous collaboration tools like virtual offices or audio-first channels. These interfaces allow you to clearly see if a teammate is in focus mode or if they are available.
Which enables a quick 15-second audio tap without the heavy ceremony of a formal calendar invite or a video feed.
It is entirely about designing communication pathways that fit the specific size and weight of the problem. You do not need a heavy-duty, multi-camera video conference to ask a binary question about a font color.
Matching the tool to the task is the essence of functional clarity.
It really is. It all comes back to less, but better.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening deep dive into the mechanics of how we work. To recap our journey today, we started by calculating the massive macroeconomic hemorrhage, uncovering exactly how poor meeting design drains between $399 billion and $532 billion from the economy annually.
A staggering amount of waste.
Then we zoomed into the neuroscience to analyze the physical brain drain, detailing how unnatural eye contact triggers mirror anxiety and how constant context shifting imposes a 40% cognitive penalty on our working memory.
Right.
We explore the executive dashboard's dangerous obsession with visibility over velocity, which creates the structural bottlenecks causing 67% of directors to burn out.
Which forces the whole system to gridlock.
Exactly. But most importantly, we applied Dieter Rams's minimalist design philosophy to our communication architecture. We proved that by subtracting recurring meetings, enforcing 150-word binary briefs, and utilizing AI as our automated memory layer, we can literally restore our productive capacity through subtraction.
As we close, there is one final provocative reality that I want you to consider.
Oh, leave us with something to think about.
Think about the strict financial controls inside your organization. If you managed your company's financial capital the exact same way you manage your team's calendar space, allowing anyone in the company to spend it without a detailed agenda, without an absolute limit, and without a permanent record of what was purchased, how long would your company stay in business?
Wow, that reframes the entire issue. If you let any employee blindly reach into the corporate bank account the way they casually reach into their colleagues' calendars to steal an hour of time, the doors would close in a week.
Exactly.
Yet we allow them to steal cognitive bandwidth every single day.
We do.
Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. The mandate for you is clear. Start reclaiming your bandwidth tomorrow morning. Cancel one alignment meeting, force a stalled project into a 150-word brief, and start treating your attention with the engineering rigor it deserves. We'll see you next time.